All right, we are in week 2 of DTR, Define the Relationship. And last week we set out on defining a lot of goals, really explaining what is the aim, what type of relationships we want to have. The goal is healthy relationships. And the ultimate goal, the big goal, is a healthy, strong marriage. And not the world's marriage, but a godly Christian marriage, a man and a woman based on the covenant of marriage, a marriage that honors the Lord, that raises up children in ways that fear Him, and that just makes us more holy and happy. Like we're running after, it's a big goal. And in order to get a big goal and something that's radically different than what's offered and just we see everywhere, we have to approach it differently. So if we have a different goal, we're going to take a different approach. And so last week we talked about the first way we do that is we pursue friendships differently. We're not going to be casual, like, yeah, we're kind of friends, kind of not, any gray areas like that. We want to have clear friendships, clear friend zones, so that everything else can be clear as well. Where there's ambiguity, where there's not clarity, people get hurt. You get hurt, I get hurt. Just, it's not good for community. But where there's clarity, community is strengthened. And so we're running after clear relationships. And last recap, singleness is not evil, right? Marriage is not this like solve everything. There's advantages to being single and there's advantages to being married. And wherever you find yourself, take advantage of that season you're in, right? So it's a good thing to be married, but it's not a like evil, bad thing to be single. Let's make sure we run after marriage without feeling like we have the single plague we have to get through. Cool? All right, so who wants to discuss getting out of the friend zone? You guys ready for that? How do we get out of this? Yeah, a few of you are like, I just like it here. This is my safe spot. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about. Getting out of the friend zone. I'm going to break it down into 3 parts. And forgive me, but I'm just going to use a sports analogy. It seems to fit well. There's the training, the tryout, and making the team. Now, the training is all the work you do. You know, when you're trying out for a team, or in this case, it's not a team. It's just one, like you make a team, just to make sure we're clear, just 2 people in these relationships. But when you're going out for a team, you have to do some training beforehand. And so when you're going out, you want to get out of the friend zone, you want to enter into a relationship, there are things you need to do to get ready. That's the training. Then the tryout is that first date or first few dates. We're going to end tonight talking about those dates. They could be really good. They could be not so good. We're going to set up hopefully some guidelines to help protect people and also bring clarity. And then lastly, making the team. When you get official, your boyfriend, girlfriend, you change your profile. It's big time. You tell your mom and dad. That we're going to really dive into next week. But, all right. So training camp, right at the beginning, what are the things you need to have together before dating and to what level? Now, I'm going to be talking about a bunch of things, and a few of these are hard to pin down. Like, I'd like to be very, very precise, but we're dealing with people here, and people are complicated. And so ideally, this is what I'd like to do. I would set some litmus tests. Like, you have to attain this level of maturity spiritually, emotionally, physically by this age, and the other person has to do the same. And then once you're there, you start dating and you follow this perfect timeline. I would like to do that. But you guys all make that terribly difficult. And I did the same. So I'm going to speak in a little bit of generalities, but I hope that this will help put you in a position where you can enter into a really healthy, strong relationship. So first off there, number 1, become marriage material. Now, we're not going to talk a ton about this, but the world dates just for funsies, like just whatever. I'm bored, let's go on a date or whatever. Christians, I would challenge us, we're not doing that. We have goals in mind. And so your goals have healthy friendships, healthy dating relationships, and a healthy dating relationship has marriage in, like that's a goal you're running after. right? And remember from last week, a healthy dating relationship, it's healthy, it's fine if you get to the end of it and you realize it's not going to work out. And you want to get to that spot with as little pain and struggle as possible. The greater success is when you get to a place where you're like, this is going to work out, booyah. And you want to go for that, but marriage is the goal. And so in dating, when you are like, I want to start dating, you want to become marriage material because that's what you're running after. Dan Dealing says there, be the person you are looking for is looking for. Be the person you are looking for is looking for. We often don't think about that. We just make it about us. Like, all right, I want to make sure, like, I find the right person. And then we can neglect making sure we're the right person for someone else. I was watching this video, and I don't know if you know Candace Owens. She said, in a little bit like a sassy way, it's Candace, but she says, if you're complaining about men, ask yourself, are you becoming the type of woman men would want? And the same goes opposite. Dudes, if you're complaining about women, are you becoming the type of dude that a woman would want? That's important, that we are working towards those things. And it says there in Luke 2:52, Jesus kept increasing in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men, God and people. That verse was written when he was young. He was about 13. His parents took him to the temple. And we see from then on, Jesus kept maturing. He kept growing. And it says there he grew physically and he grew spiritually. And so my challenge for you is let's really, if we're going to try to pursue healthy, good relationships, let's be the best men or women we can be for those relationships. Let's not settle. Let's not grow complacent. Let's not say, oh, I've arrived, I'm good, now I just need to find someone else that could get on my level. Like, keep pursuing excellence. You don't have to be perfect, but you should aim in that direction, and progress is good. So let's become marriage material. Now, here's what I want to say in this white box there. It says, know your role. When it comes to this first part and the second part that we're going to go over tonight, it's important to consider the role God has for you in marriage. Now, I'm going to go over this in not the time it deserves. Probably next year we'll spend a whole night talking about real God-defined marriage and the roles and all of that. But I want to tell you this. Men, you were called by God to lead, provide, and protect. Lead, provide, and protect. Women, your main role within marriage is as a helpmate and as a nurturer. Like, God has designed you more naturally, more easily to be a nurturer, and that's going to play a bigger role in raising children. Now, women, you don't have to be barefoot, stuck in the kitchen 24/7, right? I believe you can have. My wife has owned businesses. She still does a ton of different things to either bring in side income or to learn new things. So I'm not saying women, like, all your duties within marriage are domestic and just know your role that way. That's not what I'm saying. Dudes, I'm not saying you can't change a diaper, right? There can be overlap in all of this, but when it comes to marriage, men, we need to lead. We need to provide and we need to protect. When we do that well, it's going to answer the women like security. They like to feel taken care of, and that's going to help them step into their God-given roles within marriage too. I bring all of this up because as you pursue becoming marriage material, men, that means you are becoming someone who can lead, provide, and protect. That's your mindset. Women, a little bit more, you're considering, all right, how can I prepare myself to enter into a marriage where I'm going to be able to help raise a family that's going to honor the Lord? God calls us to be fruitful and multiply. Multiply means more than 2 kids because 2 is just replacing yourselves, right? We can talk about that later. But so all of these things come into consideration as we become marriage material. Yes, I'm speaking in generalities. Yes, there are great marriages where they choose to not have many kids or things like that. But in general, this is the broad brush that I think is important for us to consider. So with that in mind, are you marriage material? First question there is, how is your relationship with God? Now, when we talk about marriage material, if I'm using this sports analogy, if I continue with that, there's things where you're ready, there's things where you're dealing with injuries, and there's things that disqualify you. What I mean by that is this. If you have a strong faith, a strong walk with the Lord, you're in a good spot here. If it's just so, you might be dealing with something that's more akin to an injury, where it's not disqualifying you, but you might need to build up something, strengthen some things before you jump in the dating game. Fair? And then if you're not a Christian, I'm just going to tell you now, if you're not a Christian, and if you're not like a real Christian, anyone could call themselves a Christian. But if you are not putting Jesus first in your life, then if the person you're interested in comes to me and says, hey, should I date so-and-so? I'm going to tell them no. I've done this many times. In fact, recently someone got married and they started liking each other, googly eyes, all that stuff here at Young Adults. This was a couple years ago. And they both separately sat down. They wanted to sit down with me. And she said, hey, should I date this dude? And I said, I really, really like him. I don't think he's a Christian. He has to figure that out. And if he does give his life to the Lord, you probably should give him some time to really establish that before you date. He called me up and he says, hey, I really want to date this girl. I said, are you a Christian? And he's like, I'm not sure. I said, well, then you shouldn't date her. You got to figure that out. And not like you got to figure that out, but that's important. That's a crucial aspect, because if someone's not a Christian, they don't have the same worldview as you. So everything that your relationship is going to be founded on is going to be different, because your life is founded on a different set of beliefs and understandings. So right here, becoming marriage material, you have to ask yourself, what's your relationship with God? All right, who is it? No? Anyone? Phone? Is it not you, DJ? No. I don't believe you on your phone. All right. And here's some questions for you to ask. Are you in a place where your walk with the Lord is growing? How regularly are you doing devotions, going to church? Are you serving in a ministry? Personally, if you're not serving in a ministry, that's a great sign of a healthy, strong relationship with the Lord. And there's seasons where maybe you can't because of some extenuating circumstances. For most of us in this room, you probably have time. So hopefully you're serving in a ministry. Is God your number one priority? You know that by, does your schedule change based around God, or does your church schedule adjust to other things in your life? Where does this all fall in? What about this? Are you currently battling a sin? And depending on the sin, it's probably a disqualifier if you're if you're struggling with a big addiction, you should figure that out, right? And there might be a sin that doesn't disqualify you, but that's a good thing to take to a mentor or a pastor and work through. But these are all questions, if you want to become marriage material, that I would challenge you to ask yourself. Is your relationship with God good? Next question. Do you have freedom from past hurts? Past breakups, family challenges, maybe some traumas. Hurt people. And there's even, Pastor Bill Wilson had this policy, Pastor James was telling me, because he worked with Metro for many years, where if there was a big life change that happened, he would encourage that person not to date for 6 months. And his rationale was this: how are you going to make a really big decision when your decision maker's broken? when you're dealing with emotions and challenges because you just went through something big. Now, that's something, again, because you have a counselor or a mentor or you have someone speaking into your life that you could bring to them, and they could help you decide if what you've gone through recently is a disqualifier or if it's an injury or where you're at in that. But you got to have freedom, because if you don't have freedom from past hurts, that means you're bringing that into a relationship and it's going to affect your relationship. Next one there. Where are you in your career and your finances? So dudes, just calling it straight. Like if you're an 18-year-old dude and you don't know what you want to do with your life, you should just decide to sit out the dating game for a little bit. If you're called to lead, provide, and protect, you're going to enter into a relationship at 18, but not have any real means of getting married for quite a few years, then what that means is you're going to have quite a few years of trying to figure out, how do I not overstep physical boundaries, which we're going to talk about next week, while figuring all this stuff out. Plus, how are you going to start a relationship? And this girl, you might be like you don't know if the career that you want to enter into is one she's down with. That's a fair question, right? When I started dating my wife, she knew she was dating someone who's going to be a pastor. Being a pastor's wife means she has to put up with some stuff. There's other types. Being a firefighter's wife, you have to deal with some stuff. You name the career, it plays a role in your relationship. So dudes, it's important that we have our career or our schooling, we have a path in line. Now, you might not have it all figured out. Again, counselors, mentors, great. But you should at least know a general direction or be headed that way, have those steps in order. When I started dating my wife, I was a junior in college. I knew I wanted to be a pastor. I was a year and a half away from graduating. And my finances, I didn't have any school loans. In order for that to work, half my income went to paying off college during those last 2 years because I didn't want to take out school loans. What that meant, though, is I started dating my wife. 11 months later, I was able to get engaged, partially because my relationship with God was in a good spot. I knew where I was heading. My finances were in order. And I was a year and a half away from being able to do a lot of that stuff. That's just not possible for a lot of people. But I thank Jesus it was for me, because it meant I didn't have to, physical boundaries, year and a half of really guarding those. I'll leave it at that. Not 3 years, not 4 years. I was grateful for that. All right, so where are you at with your career? Now, ladies, I know a lot of ladies that they want to be moms. And if that's really what you want to do, don't go get your doctorate and have all this debt where you can't become a mom because you have to go work to pay off all this debt. Now, you can pursue excellence, and you have some options there. You could say, all right, I'm going to pursue a career, and then I'm going to take a break from that career for a little bit, or I'm going to pursue a career that will complement being a mother. I think the greatest example of that's nursing. You could have a great job, pursue nursing, do nursing full-time, make good money, and then have kids and work per diem where you just do a couple shifts a month, bring in decent money, and then once you're done, you start that up again. But have that all in mind as you're pursuing finances and career. Please, ladies, if you really want to be a mom, please don't go to school where you have to rack up $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in debt in order to not enter that career. I've seen it done a lot, and that's gonna challenge a bunch of future things. You all with me? Any questions about that? Leave that open. Is that fair? Yeah. All right. Next question. Do you have counselors and mentors? As you can see, so many of these things can be nuanced. So bringing them to someone with wisdom and helping that you figure that out is so important. I remember having people in my life that I was able to, first off, my relationship in high school, after we broke up, I had people tell me like, oh, I don't know what you were doing. And I'm like, you punk. Maybe not what I was thinking. Like, why didn't you talk to me or tell me or anything like that? I had the opposite happen when I started dating my wife. I had people say, like, you better hurry up and put a ring on it. Like, you better, like, I love this. And it was unsolicited. And that was great. So make sure you have mentors and counselors in your life. All right, next question, becoming marriage material. How's your health and hygiene? Now, this is the one that we're not allowed to talk about. Like, you're just, because, you know, we have pushed back. There was a season, and there still is a little bit of a season where there's, like, there could be an impossible standard for a lot of people where, you know, especially ladies, you could feel pressure to be a size 0 and, like, be in absolute crazy good shape and all this, and that might not be plausible for a lot of women. But then on the flip side, we have these magazines that are trying to call something healthy that isn't. And that's a problem too. Dudes, I know a lot of dudes that come in to different places and you look a little bit like a homeless dude. You have just unkept. You're wearing stuff that, like, just you're not wearing things that I think would be presentable. I don't know. If you're wearing stuff and it looks like you just finished working out or crawled out of bed or things like that, how's your health and hygiene? So a couple things. We got to make sure you're taking care of yourself. You're showering, you're brushing your teeth, all that. But also, are you in decent shape? Are you in a place where you are taking care of yourself? For a lot of people, you could lose a few pounds. And if we're honest, that would help out. So if that's you, pursue that. That's going to help you go a lot further when it comes to the dating area. Are your friends and hobbies making you a better person? Real quickly, I know of people who have not dated people because of their friends. And I agreed with them. I was like, absolutely, those friends are drama. Their issue, like, I wouldn't want to deal with that. Every time you did something wrong, you would get like 6 people yelling at you because, like, no thanks. Something to consider. Keep going on. And are you progressing and maturing? Let's run towards this stuff. So becoming marriage material, what you see there is we want to run after spiritual growth, physical growth, emotional stability, just a whole package. We're working on becoming marriage material, becoming someone that is ready to enter into the covenant of marriage. This is what's weird. I moved out of my parents' house into my house and got married. And it's like when I turned 18, I was an adult technically, but I lived at home. My mama cooked for me. I was an adult. But then when you get married, you're married. Like, you're on your own, just you two, in your own place, your own apartment, your own kitchen stuff. Like, you want to be prepared. And it's not crazy, like, you shouldn't be intimidated or scared, but it's a big deal, and we want to make sure we're ready. Cool? Any questions about becoming marriage material? All right. The verse right there, you guys have heard me quote it a million times, but I just love it. Run after whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, and whatever is of good repute. If there's of any excellence, if anything worthy of praise, dwell on those things. Number 2, so the training. You've done a lot of working out. Now it's time to find someone who is marriage material. You got to find someone else that is worth dating. And so there's a few things that I want to challenge you to do. First thing below there, it says write down the qualities you want in someone and take that to a mentor. So I want to encourage everyone in here, if you're single, write down what you're looking for in a girl or a dude. Write down the good qualities that you want. Write down the bad qualities. Write down, like, hopefully Christian right on top. But write down a few of the small things. With my wife, I wanted someone who was, like, artistic. I wanted someone that liked classic rock. I like listening to classic rock every so often. And it was a quality that thankfully Courtney had. Like just things like that. Write down all those factors and then take it to a mentor. And I say take it to that because we do have a problem where there are some men and women who your standards are too high. Now, listen. You want to have high standards. You want to have good, high standards. You don't want to settle. But you also want to make sure that person exists. And I've seen a lot in ladies, I've seen it more in ladies, where there have been good dudes just get overlooked because they didn't fit the like perfect caliber and quality. And there is a level of taking it too far. So take that to a mentor and stuff. But here's some questions to ask. Now, we are not going to go through all of these. You look through that, find different questions, and they're just some suggested questions. I don't know how often we think like, hey, is this person, how do they handle their money? Do they live an upright life? Are they high maintenance or low maintenance? There's some good questions there. The first blank there is, what is their reputation and why? Now, I say why because sometimes people have reputations and it's really a lame reason. No one really knows them and they're just making a bunch of stereotypes. And it's healthy to ask yourself, why do they have that reputation, to hopefully break down if it's just a stereotype put on that person and it's not there. But in general, your reputation precedes you. And it's important to ask pastors, wise counsel, other people, like, hey, is this a good dude? Is this a good girl? Is it someone that you should pursue? And maybe they say, like, keep an eye on them, not yet, and stuff. And you don't have to, like, base everything off someone's reputation. But I do think it's a healthy question to ask. Next one there with the blank. Oh, before the third to last one there says, have I brought this before the Lord? Guys, if you are, guys, you're at fault for this just as much. You're out of somewhere and some attractive girl or guy, the opposite sex, looks at you, says hi, and you're like, it must be God. Right? I don't know. Never mind. I told you about the French girl at Grossmont, right? Have I told you guys about this? No. I had this class. This was before I was dating Courtney. And this girl was in it, and she was this brunette French girl, and she had the accent. And every dude in that class was swooning over her. And maybe me a little bit. And it was I remember thinking, like, this is so stupid. And she's pretty. And that accent is so nice. But we can just get all Twitter-pated and forget to bring it to God. Bring it to God. Even if they're handsome, even if they check everything off, go to God and just say, hey, Lord, do you have this for me? Is this what you have in mind? So last two there, and we're going to try to hurry up a little bit. Do they fit my style? That's the fill in the blank. Do they fit my style? And here's what I mean by that. If you have read The Sacred Search, you know what I'm talking about. There are people have styles. So Neil and Heather, when they go on dates, they go to the beach, right? They have this rule that if it doesn't count as a date unless they go west of Mission Valley. My wife and I don't want to go that far. Like I want to go to the mountains, like the other way, but even I'm cool with East County. Just keep it here in East County. Like we have just different styles. I have friends who are like, let's go on vacation. We're going to fly to a resort out of the country. My wife and I have never been on an airplane together. And we've been married 12 years. We have a different style, right? There are some people that they want to live in one of those like HOAs where someone else takes care of your yard, and like you have a group pool, like community pool and all that, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. Not my wife and our style, right? We did just get rid of the chickens, but at one point we had chickens and a hamster and bunnies and a dog and a frog that we caught it's just, so different styles. Find someone that's your style, but it goes more than that. There are some girls that are CEOs and some girls that are like, let's have 16 kids. Find your style. Like all of that's important, because you could find someone that is a really, really good person and God made you different. So consider that. Last thing, am I attracted to them? All right, we got to talk about this. You became marriage material. You found someone. They check off all your lists, but they're not what you would typically find attractive. And there's ranges, right? We all agree there's ranges. I don't think you should go out on a date or pursue someone that there's no attraction. If there's no attraction, that's an important quality. But I also know that attraction grows on people. So if they fit all the qualities, and you're like, there could be something there, you could go on a date or two. You could go on a few dates and see if that grows. It's okay. Courtney was the first blonde I ever dated, outside of junior high relationships. That's another message. But there are just things that were different about her. But first off, she's a babe. And so it was not I didn't have to oh man, I'm really going to have to challenge myself here. It was okay. But if things are different or all of that, it's okay if it's not your eyes going crazy, almost pass out the first time you see them. You can grow in attraction, especially if all the other things check off. Give it a chance. See what the Lord does. So here's what you've done. You have prepared yourself. You now have found someone that you're I think they're worth pursuing. Number 3, how to get out of the friend zone. You're going to get to know someone in community. Get to know them in groups. Get to know them in ministry. Bill Wilson has a saying, you don't actually start dating someone until you've dated them for 6 months. That's because for those first 6 months, when they know you're coming over or you're going to go on a date, girls, you put on your makeup. Dudes, you shower. You iron your shirt, or you step it up a little bit. You don't burp in front of them. You definitely don't fart in front of them. There's just things that you're I got to put on my best self. Well, that starts to fade a little bit after you've dated someone a while. And you also don't do that if you're just in a group and you don't know they're checking you out. My wife did this. Her brother was in my youth group at Youth Venture, and I had no clue that she was scoping me out a little bit. I told you guys last week we were set up. So my wife and I were set up. One of my close friends and one of her close friends were talking. They said, hey, I think David and Courtney should get married. And they all agreed. And then my friend said, hey, I know who you're going to marry. And then wouldn't tell me Courtney's name for a while. And then they told Courtney my name because they're cheaters. And that's against the rule. Well, so Courtney starts to pick up Connor from Youth Venture because that's what older sisters do. Not. She was spying on me. I had no clue, though. And so for a while that happened, and she kept picking him up, and she just got to see what I was doing, who I was, and I didn't know. Eventually I found out, and that's when I asked her out. But all of that is great. Here at Young Adults, you get to see someone from across the room and see how they worship. Now look, that's kind of weird. But really, that's kind of cool. You get to see what they do. Do they, after group, Do they play Uno? Do they play volleyball? Do they play ping pong? Do they play Fortnite? Do they mix it up? Do they join the jam session? You get to see what they do. Do they join the prayer meeting? Do they volunteer for things? How plugged in are they? Do they serve in a ministry? If you could serve in a ministry with someone, you're going to get to know them a lot because ministry is ministry, right? Get to know someone in groups and you get to see who they are on a whole nother way. So now here's 3B or another thing. Tips for online dating. We got to talk about online dating for a minute. So we're talking about getting out of the friend zone. And right now, the number one way in America for people to get out of the friend zone is through online dating. More relationships start because of online dating than anywhere else right now. And I am not anti-online dating, mostly. Here's some tips, though. I really, really, really do not think you should start there. Don't start with online dating. I don't think it is the best option. I think the best option is community. The best option is where you get to see someone across the way. So don't start there. If you're 18, I don't think you should be on online dating. 19, probably not too. In fact, if you're older than that and you're new to a community, I would say you should wait a while too, because you're new into a community. You need to get to know people. And maybe you're finding someone there. It's healthy within community for a few reasons we're going to get to. I'm just going to skip ahead. If I'm online dating and I find this girl at a different church, one of us has to leave our community if it works, right? That's complicated. Who does that? John Ulloa met Ali online. I don't think I'm spilling the beans or anything. Oh, well. I can't take it back. And love you, John. He just told her, look, I'm a pastor at Foothills. Part of this, if it's going to work, is you're going to have to join my community. Well, she's a strong Christian. She had community at another church because she was doing things right. That's a factor that's not in play when you find someone within your community. So don't start there. It says the next one, don't join out of fear. If you think I have to do this or I'm going to be single forever, don't do it. In fact, don't do anything ever out of fear. You're a Christian. Seek the Lord, pray about it. If that's wise, if that's what's right, you can do it. But don't join out of fear. That's not a healthy response to anything. Make sure it's not user error. In parentheses, write down you, Y-O-U. Don't join a dating app and the reason you might not be finding someone might be you. I'm just calling it what it is. And so what I would encourage you to do is go to a mentor, go to a counselor and say, hey, look, I'm really struggling within my community, within my church. I'm thinking about going and dating online. What do you think? And are there things I need to fix first? Because a lot of people online are there because they haven't found it within their community. And you got to be careful that you're just not putting on, you know how we all have our profile persona, but it's not real life fully. You don't want that to be you and not to be the other person, and it just can complicate things. So there's ways around that, and sometimes online is a really real good option. But you want to make sure that you aren't going online because you have something that you can correct and you're not getting that work done. Now, here's the deal. If you go to your home group pastor, your home group pastor's wives, if you go to me and you ask me, hey, am I marriage material or what can I fix? I'll tell you. Now, you have to tell me what level of honesty you want. And you have to be okay with that level of honesty. I really want healthy, strong relationships here. Good relationships. So if you're willing to do that, I'll shoot you straight. I do know that there's some guys and there's some girls in here that the fact that you're still single frustrates me because I think you are. And there's some other people that I'm like, man, you are so close. And hopefully some of this, All right. Approach people online with the same standard. Now, here's the deal. Don't lower your standards because you're online. Same standard. Just because you're online doesn't mean you're like, oh, I can compromise. Don't compromise. Next one, be prepared for, I already did that one. All right, last two, don't use Tinder or hookup sites. Either use Christian dating apps or, because some of those can be weird, use other apps, use the Christian filter, but then assume, don't trust but verify, right? If they say they're a Christian, just know anyone could say they're a Christian. Ask them, where do you go to church? What ministries do you do? What level does your faith play in your life? Pursue some things. Ladies, just say right at the beginning, hey, just so you know, I think that God created sex for within marriage, and I'm to wait until I'm married, and I just want to be upfront clear about that. There's going to be dudes who say they're Christian that are going to right away say, hey, no thanks, and just save that. Just take care of that right at the beginning. It's so annoying. It's frustrating. But be honest and be clear, and especially, there's some things about first dates we're going to go over that are emphasized with online dating. Cool. Any questions about online dating? All right, last part for the night. Let's go on some dates. Go on appropriate first dates. Here's how this works. You've become marriage material. You found someone that you believe is marriage material, or at least you're both on that direction. You don't have to be perfect, but you're headed in the right direction. You go up to them, and guy, you say to the girl, hey, I'd like to take you out on a date. Not and just call it what it is. You don't have to be sly or coy or anything like this. Girls, for this, while I'd rather the guy pursue you, we don't take hints always really well. And so you could say to a dude, hey, let's go on a date. Or if you don't want to do that because it's not just girls don't ask, you can say, hey, I think you should ask me on a date. Then, same, right? Loophole. But just call it what it is. Now, here's the thing. Drive separately to your destination. Now, you do that for a couple reasons. You don't have boundaries at this point. You're just figuring out, and you're not boyfriend, girlfriend. Let me clear that up. And this is debatable. Some people are like, David, that's not how Christians are supposed to do it. I disagree. I think we got to have this is the vulnerability zone. You got to figure it out. This is a tryout. And so it's okay to go on a date and not have the title. But if you don't have the title, you don't have the boundaries. If you don't have the boundaries, you have to do some things differently because it could be a really good date. And you don't want to put yourself in a bad spot. It could be a really bad date. You don't want to put yourself in a bad spot. So you drive separately so that you can go home separately. You can leave whenever you want. Or you drive separately because if it's going really good, you don't want to be in a car alone without boundaries. More on that next week. So then you go to a public place, right? And you do something that allows you to talk to each other. So don't go to a movie theater. You can't talk during a movie. At least you're not supposed to, right? So go somewhere, go to a coffee shop. And it says there, don't make it a huge deal. I'm going to emphasize that again in a second. And a couple hours long. Go to lunch. Go to a coffee shop. Go to somewhere where it's not you're committed to 3-4 hours, right? You're just starting out. It's okay. And you can get out easy. You can talk and get to know each other and see if a second date makes sense. And if a second date doesn't make sense, then at the end of that date, you say, hey, thank you so much. It was really nice getting to know you. I don't think this is going to work out dating-wise, but I'm grateful for this time. And dudes, if she says that to you, you respect it. And you don't have to say why or anything, because she doesn't owe you a why. You can go talk to your mentor about that. Girls, if he says that to you, you're going to more be prone. Guys are going to get defensive. Girls are more prone to be like, what's wrong with me? Nothing might be wrong with you. It might be all him. We can assume that. Listen, nothing might be wrong with you, but it might just not make sense. So you're not going to own it. You're not going to feel like, oh, he is betraying or denying me or turning me down. None of that. You're going to say, okay, and you're going to go home. Is that hard? Yeah, that's hard. That's never fun. But there's no, if there's a better way to do this, let me know. But if it works out, then you say, hey, let's do this again. And you're going to, within 2 to 4 dates, that's not like fixed, set in stone, but about that, figure out if you're going to put a title on it or not. Now, until you put a title on it, you're probably not making boundaries, because it'd kind of be weird to write boundaries up for someone you're not dating, like officially. But if you don't have boundaries, then you need to be in public places driving separately, because you don't want to do something that you wouldn't do if you had boundaries. You with me? So now, if we do this, and let's say Jonathan goes on this date with Allie, and it doesn't work out, and they separate. And then Jonathan, I'm sorry, I don't know who else to use. And then Jonathan's like, well, I want to go on another date. He doesn't have to wait 2 months to do that. Now, if he went on a few dates, it might be healthy to pause a little bit and stuff, but we're not going to make that a big deal. And same with Allie. Now, if he goes on a date and it doesn't work out, on a date and it doesn't work out, date it doesn't work out, then that's a little concerning. You know, maybe he gets rein it in a little bit and figure some stuff out. And same for the girl. But we're not going to make this a huge deal, because what we're trying to figure out is this something that we should pursue? We're looking for clarity so you can put a title on it and then start the next step in your relationship. Any questions about that? Guys, if you ask a girl out on a date and they say no, you're walking away. You're not asking them again next week. You're not like getting upset. You are walking away. And you're done. Now you can be friends. It's all good. Girls, same thing. Like, we're just gonna not make it a big deal, but if they say yes, cool, go on a healthy date and see what's cool, what works. All right, here's what we're doing next week. You're official. Boyfriend, girlfriend. How do you get from there now to the finish line and do it well? What are the boundaries? What are the timeline? What's that timeline look like? How do you break up if you need to break up? All of that is next week. It's going to be fun. Will you guys pray with me? And you guys come up. Lord, God, I pray that this really blesses you and honors you. Lord, when relationships are healthy and strong, it makes just community strong, and it makes what we can do together more effective. And Lord, we want to be a ministry that is effective by your standards. And Lord, we know that the opposite's true. Too often, drama and struggle here hinders what you want to do. And I just pray that you would guard us against that. Lord, if there's confusion, if there's questions, if there's even hurts within this room, then God, I pray that you would help us to not just hold on to those, but to really bring them to the wise counsel you have in our lives, so we can discuss it. And lastly, I pray this. Lord, you are in the process of sanctifying us, of making us more and more like you, to the degree that we allow you to do that. May we be a community, may we be men and women who allow you to do a good work in us so you can do a great work through us.